Aishlin, welcome back to Collection Cutdown. Today's video is on Aliens, the sci-fi classic directed by James Cameron and starring Sigourney Weaver. It's the sequel to Alien. As I mentioned in my review for Alien, this is actually my favourite of the two. Part of that is just because it has such an action movie vibe rather than a horror vibe, and of the two genres, action is probably my favourite. But part of it is also, I've discussed this before, I think in my 28 Days Later review, that the family unit thing is something that I really enjoy, and I really like the ending of this one. And I know that it's like then buggered in the third one, which is a reason I've never watched it. But I do really like the way that this one ended. I really like the dynamics between the crew. I really like Michael Biehn and his character in this. So that's really why I enjoyed this one and why I'm really looking forward to seeing it again. As much as I remember enjoying it, I don't actually remember a lot of the particulars. You know, I have some visuals in my mind, and this one I think is the more quotable of the movies. And obviously that shot of Ripley at the end in the suit, you know. So there is stuff that I remember about it. Part of it is just because it is quite iconic in popular culture, and some of those images and quotes keep coming up quite a lot. And some of it is stuff that has actually stuck with me. It's going to be good to revisit this one and see things that I may have missed the first time round, or even things that I have forgotten. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to seeing this one again. I thought it was a brilliant film the first time round, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to like it again this time too. So I will see you all on the other side. Aliens picks up 57 years after Alien left off. The plot of this film is that Ripley returns to the planet where they found the alien originally with a team of Marines to hopefully kill these aliens once and for all, and of course everything goes terribly wrong. The decision to have this set 57 years after the first one was an interesting one. It did add a layer on one hand, and on the other hand I wasn't entirely sure it was necessary. So in the meantime, Ripley's daughter has grown up, grown old, and then passed away. So her maternal feelings regarding her daughter are then transferred to Newt later in the film, the little girl they find. It also gave time for a colony of people to grow quite large on this planet, and therefore, you know, the danger is bigger and the scale of destruction, I guess. As I said in the intro, this is my favourite one of the series. There's so much I like about it, from the very quotable lines to Ripley's development as a character, to the found family element, to all kinds of things. And one of my favourite parts is that they really allow Ripley to have trauma from the events of the first movie. You know, she's plagued by nightmares, it clearly still affects her, she's jumpy, and she keeps getting upset over things, you know, and none of it lessens her toughness and resourcefulness and ingenuity as a character. The fact that this film allowed her to go through that process of healing was really great to see, and really important that particularly having those elements of vulnerability did nothing to lessen her character, and in fact strengthened it and made her a much more fully rounded person. And that's one of the reasons I think Ripley is always so compelling as a heroine. I mentioned the found family element, and I think that that's really one of the most interesting parts of this film, is the juxtaposition between the family that's forming between Ellen and Newt, and to a lesser extent Hicks, and the family of the alien and the queen alien and all her brood. And, you know, it is at its core about motherhood and what you would do to protect your young and so on. And I think that that was a really interesting element to it, that, you know, that it really had that reflection between the two mothers. I really liked that theme and the way that they explored that. You all know I love Ripley, but in this I also love Hicks. I think that he is a perfect foil for her toughness, because he's equally badass, you know, but on the other hand he's not a jerk about it, and he completely respects her as a human being. Like, you know, he takes her advice and he is very impressed by her. I have to say that's one of my favorite romance dynamics, or just dynamics in general, where there's this awesome woman who's just amazing and capable, and the guy is just totally in awe of her and respects her. Their relationship and their bond is one of the reasons that I love this movie so much. I liked the way that they set up his character, that he was the strong silent type. He didn't join in any of the sexist banter, and it was particularly clear because they juxtaposed him very deliberately with Hudson, played by Bill Paxton, who was this sort of gregarious, sexist, you know, bit of a jerk, bit of a hothead. And then there was Hicks, who was just, you know, he did his job, but he didn't sort of get involved in any of the worst elements of that kind of soldier character. So it made it very clear from the get-go who I was gonna like, but probably who Ripley would like too. And I know there are plenty of people who wouldn't read this movie as a romance, but for me, it very clearly is, and part of that is just my shipper heart. I love romance and I love this dynamic in particular, but I think that there are a lot of elements that bring this away from the platonic and into the romantic. The line about, oh, it doesn't mean we're engaged or anything, or the flirtation when he's teaching her how to use the gun. And then most particularly that ending where it really is like a nuclear family unit. I particularly enjoyed that ending because of what it meant for Ripley and for Newt and even for Hicks. I talked a little bit about the sexist banter in the beginning, particularly to introduce Hudson. I didn't think it was quite as successful in this one as I did in the first movie, particularly because it does play into some of those stereotypes of Marines, of the, you know, sexist banter and stuff. And it's not so bad. It was really only a couple of scenes, so I could get past it, but it did bug me just a little bit. Another thing I want to mention is that I said in the first movie that it had aged really well, particularly because it was almost all practical effects. And in this, there are some shots of CGI that haven't aged quite as well. I mean, overall, the film still looks great and hasn't aged to the point of ridiculousness at all, of course, but there were a couple of shots where it just wasn't, you know, quite as well aged as maybe the first movie or even other movies of this period. And the only other bad thing I want to say about this movie is that it's just really long. It's like 2.5 hours long. I don't have the attention span for that anymore. I do think it's a great film. It's highly watchable and you don't entirely notice the passing of time, but I did kind of just wish it didn't go on as long as it did. So I think this one's pretty obvious whether I'm keeping it or not. I love this movie. There's so much I like about it, and I could definitely see myself watching this again, so this one's staying on my keeper shelf. The next official video I'm doing on the channel is on a period drama called All for Love. However, I promised myself that the next time I saw Alien and Aliens, I would finally see Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection. And so I guess this is the time. These two have been sitting on my unwatched shelf for a very long time. I've been reluctant to see number 3 because I know that it kind of retcons the happy ending in number 2, the ending that I love so much. So I might see it and just pretend it's kind of an alternate universe. I'll do them in the format of the bonus videos rather than in the format of the true collection cut down videos. So they will be up next on this channel. I'll see you then, but bye for now and happy watching.